Good morning and welcome to Teach Me Bees. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I've got with me my favorite co-host, the wonderful Scott the Beekeeper.
I'm going to have to brag
Captain Pollination.
on every other co-host of your other podcasts. And I'm going to say, hey, did you hear? Did you hear the news? We're going to clip that. That's going to go all over social media.
All over media.
Text threads. Favorite co-host. I will own that title today.
Hey, listen.
Welcome in, everybody.
We have a great time. You know, what an exciting 2 weeks it's been. I know that we've got this agenda to follow.
But agendas
you know
also
what?
go out the window.
I'm just having a good time chatting with you today.
We're
just having a good time.
Happy Thursday morning,
happy
everybody.
Thursday, right? And so what an exciting couple of weeks, you know? So our bees came in. They were pollinating farms in California, doing almond pollination, and we picked up our bees and they're coming into the bee yard. And I remember, you know, the trailer's coming in and Scott's bringing in the trailer, and he's got, I don't know, I think 40 or 50 hives on the trailer, something like that.
Yeah.
And he texts me and he says, hey, so I'm going to park the trailer in your parking spot because, you know, I don't want the bees to get too hot. You know what I mean? There's a little more shade over there for them. And so it's funny because, you know, our bees are kind of like pets, right?
Yeah.
We love our bees. So that was our, you know, big first drop
Yeah.
of bees at the bee farm.
Yep. Bringing them in.
And gosh, how are you feeling when you brought those bees in? What was the feeling? What were you experiencing?
You know, so just to give everybody a little bit of context, your bees can overheat. Be aware. So that's why I wanted to kind of set things up in the shade. And at the time of day there was not enough time to install all the bees and get them situated. Because also when you install a nuc hive, as we've learned, the bees are a little agitated for, I would say, a couple hours.
They were going crazy.
Following day when we installed them, we put those 40 hives in at the yard. Such a fun, interesting day.
My wife was freaking out.
Yeah, I'm sure she was. Our buddy Paul, who does some other work around the property and stuff, was
love
like,
Polo.
I gotta go down there and work. And I was like, you might want to wait an hour. You might want to go get lunch and come back, because when we installed these hives, not only are they on some level, they're excited to get out and to fly. They're trying to find their queen and identify their pheromones. So they're kind of searching around. They're exploring. And so these bees were definitely out in force. And it was very funny to watch some people who may not have realized.
About how many bees were in each one of these nuc hives?
I don't know, several thousand, probably five to 10,
5 to 10,
somewhere in there,
okay,
depending on.
So let's just call it 5,000 for the sake of argument. We brought
Sure.
in 40,000 hives. You had 200,000 bees on site.
Something like that.
So you got 200,000 bees. Have you ever seen? I want to put this in perspective. So one time I was laying in bed,
Okay.
and it was about 11 o'clock. And this is back when I lived with my parents. So
Okay.
many, many moons ago. and I'm laying in bed, and I used to sleep in the basement, and I see this little black dot, and the black dot starts to expand and expand and expand.
Oh no.
And I'm like, what is that?
Turn that light on.
What is going on? And all of a sudden I realize, holy
That's what spiders.
bad word. That's like 1,000 freaking black spiders, man. And they are like dropping on me like parachute bombers in Vietnam. You know what I mean? I'm just like, oh my God. I get out of bed. I throw the covers off. I'm smashing. I'm crushing every spider. I'm spraying things.
Were you like your Axe body spray or something? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm old enough to be using deodorant before Axe body spray.
Okay. All right.
But
all right.
I probably grabbed some. Here's what I like to do. I'll be honest with you. I like to grab some hairspray.
Okay.
And I like to spray them with the hairspray.
Okay.
One,
You just have that by your bed?
I like to have the torch. No, I have to go in the bathroom and get it. Okay. I like to get the torch, but I can't do that because I'll burn the house down.
Yeah, bad idea.
So, but I spray them because they freeze. Right, the hairspray sticks them and they can't move.
Yeah, make some easy targets.
So easy targets. It's like Spider-Man. So I killed these spiders, but I mean, there was, 400 or 500 spiders. I don't know, 1,000
I don't know.
spiders.
I don't
know. Pandemonium. So you're bringing in the bees. These bees are restless, and I remember too, because Dave, who is like our bee mentor, your father-in-law, my good friend.
Other Daves.
Great Dave. I love Dave. I love Dave Lundquist. I love him like a brother. And he's like, all right, they're going to be kind of upset for about an hour. And when you got a couple 100,000 bees just swarming and everybody's kind of freaking out, you're kind of watching the clock. All right. Dave said we're going to be swarming. It's 8:38. They're going to be done about 9:38. At 9:38, when they're not done swarming, you're kind of like, what's going on? Is this going to work? Are they going back in the hive? And they swarmed for a couple hours.
Yeah, which, by the way, we did not install them at 8:30 at night. We're just saying. It was more of...
that was just an example of like...
Yes. It was like
2 o'clock in the afternoon, or
11 a.m.,
11 a.m., something like that. Yeah, it was in the morning time or whatever.
Yeah, late morning.
So they're swarming. This is your first experience. What's going through your head?
It honestly wasn't that crazy.
Okay, for you, it wasn't that big of a deal.
For some people, it might be. Probably the most annoying part of the whole thing was having to bend down so often and pick up and move, and it's kind of laborious, more intense, laborious than you would think. Just installing a nuke hive, so that was probably the most frustrating part for me. And then, as I mentioned previously on another podcast, I got stung in the neck. The very last hive that I installed, the very last frame would not fit back into the box, and I was trying to push it down, and the next thing I know, right in the neck, and I was like, I had to step away for a second, because what you can't do is you can't panic, right? Because the pheromone of the sting is going to go around to other bees. They're going to know something's going on. So you want to back away for a second, but you also just can't leave the hive wide open. Especially that day was not like the warmest day. It was around 60 degrees. And so that's kind of the minimum threshold to be doing what we were doing. And so you want to close that thing up pretty quickly, but this frame wouldn't go down. And then I got stung in the neck, so I had to take a 30-second lap. I walked over to the fence. I was like, oh, that didn't feel good. And then I was like, I got to close this thing up. I had to come back. And typically, if you pull out the frame that did fit out and you rearrange,
some grit.
Yes, definitely. There's some grit in that moment. But you can typically, if one frame doesn't fit in the end, you can pull it out, maybe pull another frame out, stick that one that wasn't working in, and then stick the other one in, and it should work. I don't know why it's all the same amount of frames going in, but the order somehow changes how they fit in.
So for the audience, how many of those frames go into a hive?
Typically 10 go in a box. We put in 8, and then we put in a frame feeder. So in ours, we have.
And for the audience, what is a frame feeder?
So it's basically it's the same length as a frame. So it just sits in the box, but it has 2 holes on either side from the top that you pour in liquid feed. So it's sugar water, 1-to-1 ratio. So same amount of sugar and same amount of water, 1-to-1.
So if I wanted to make sugar water, I would just go to my sink, grab some sugar out of the cupboard, pour it in a glass, stir it up, and I'm good?
You can stir it up. You're going to want to measure Well, one, hot water is always better. It dissolves quicker and just mixes together better. But you're gonna always want to favor sugar than water. So put in more sugar. Like if you were to, put in 1 cup and 1 cup, obviously the water will be more because it's gonna dissolve and go into. So you're gonna put more than 1 exact cup with it. But so it's a 1-to-1 ratio.
You're buying like pallets of sugar.
I'm not getting a pallets at a time, but yeah, buying several $100s worth of sugar at
several $100. Hey, we're going to Costco. We're going to get $700 worth of sugar.
We've been going to
Cash and Carry?
Cash and Carry US
Thank
Chef
God.
Store. And
Costco. So busy.
Yes. This is much easier.
The pizza's incredible.
It is, and cheap.
And cheap.
So
$9.99 for a whole box of pizza.
Why is it so cheap though? I don't know. Anyways, you gotta ask yourself some questions sometimes in life.
All right,
but the sugar, I've wondered, and we're bringing up Paul a lot here. He was like, "You making moonshine?" That's a lot of sugar, dude. And I was like, "Nope, making bee feed here."
That's look. You making moonshine? Could I have a sip of that?
He was like, in Louisiana, they would have asked you some questions, get that much sugar. And I was like, well, I'm not in Louisiana, man. I'm in Washington.
We are in Seattle.
Who knows?
Paul's like, hey, you got some moonshine.
Could just side hustle it up or something.
Have you ever talked to Paul?
All the time.
Do you know that Paul can talk to you about anything?
Paul's a talker.
I love Paul.
He can talk your ear off.
He can. You know what I love about him? Is that Paul knows something about everything. So
well versed.
So I'm not a big talker. I don't enjoy.
It's funny because you're doing a podcast.
I know. This is a stretch for me. This is one of those things that like you do to stretch yourself and grow. But so the thing is like when I go to a crowd or a meeting or like a thing, like, oh man, it's not I'm more introverted than I am extroverted when it comes to talking. You might not know that about me. But here's what I love about having Paul with me. One, Paul knows a little bit about everything. And Paul will just strike up a conversation and that's what I love about him. So like, I love bringing him along. I love having him hanging out with me because his superpower, like we all have a superpower, and Paul's superpower is talking and chatting and having fun. And it's what he really does best. And so I love that about him. And I love that he knows, like he can carry on a conversation just like forever because he knows a little bit about this, a little bit about that. Like we're talking about cars. Oh yeah, I know that's a 454 double barrel shot, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, that's beehives. Oh. He just has a lot of little knowledge in there. So yeah, he's like, are you making moonshine? And he'll start telling you, are you watching a documentary? Did you watch a documentary on that? Or do you know someone who was making moonshine? He may know someone who actually made moonshine.
Maybe.
All right. Maybe. So you make the honey water. You make the sugar water.
Yep.
And so that's 2 less frames in the hive.
Yep. So we do 8 with that.
And why do you put that in? What's the point of that?
In the early part of the season, you want to feed your bees as much as possible. When they get later in the season, there will be more natural nectar and pollen and food source for them. And then when it comes to extracting honey, you want to have stopped feeding before about 3, 4, 5 weeks before, so that your honey is not diluted by any supplemental feed. You want that to be all naturally made by the bees.
You're feeding now.
So the feed really supplements the hive to make sure it's really strong come honey time, come the peak of pollination season.
How do you feel about pollen patties?
We definitely use them. Yeah. So we try and put liquid feed in, and then we also add a pollen patty, which is.
So you're doubling it up.
Yeah, we're doubling.
You're really trying to give the bees everything that they need.
And not everyone will maybe do that, but it's what we've heard and learned, and what we're practicing ourselves to just strengthen the hive as much as possible, because a strong hive is going to be able to resist a lot of the challenges that come its way during the season, whether that's a varroa or yellow jackets or whatever thing.
We actively kill yellow jackets around the property.
Yeah, man, they have been coming at me during my in my shed with my supplies and stuff. There's a nest super close. I haven't found it yet, and like I keep just killing yellow jacket after
Wouldn't
yellow
that be
jacket.
funny if the nest was in the shed?
That would suck. Would suck.
Okay, so I saw a post online that somebody put,
Okay.
and they said, hey, I love bees, but don't kill yellow jackets because yellow jackets serve a purpose too.
I mean, everything serves a purpose on some level, but some purposes are not worth your continual life. Bye, yellow jackets.
Yeah, I mean, we're beekeepers, so we're going to have a little different view of it. Okay, so we get the bees. They're in the hive. You're putting it. How do they drink this liquid? Like, is there a hole?
They
Is
crawl
there
down in. So the holes, I guess, that I fed, or that you put the sugar water in, they're able to crawl down, drink it, crawl back up.
Can a bee drown in there?
Definitely. Some of
Do
them
they
do.
drown?
Yep, some of them do, and that's just a part of it.
So bees are drinking sweet water with dead floating bee bodies in it.
Yeah, and I do my best to clean that out, but at the same time, it's you can't get in every day and clean it out, and it's just kind of part of the course.
But we're doing a lot of feeding.
That-
So
lots of
here's
feed in
here's
the
something that
beginning.
was really a surprise to me. Okay, so our first round of hives were set up on metal frames, so they were nice and high, and so like I'm expecting to see these bee boxes in the field that are like, I don't know, waist high and above, like, and then what I saw in the field was just a lot of hives really close together.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, they're a lot lower than I expected. And I was thinking, gosh, when you get into these hives, it's almost like you're crawling on your hands and knees to get into them.
Pretty low right now. Yeah.
Pretty low. Is that something that we're going to raise up, or is that something that
We could. The field that we are in has been pretty wet lately, so I think what we designed it to raise them has not actually gone according to plan with some of those how we laid things out. So
and how did we do that so that the audience knows? Like,
yeah, we basically
walk us through it.
We created 2 rows.
Okay.
In our field, where we laid down some fabric to just stop any weeds from coming through, and then we put rock down to elevate the hives, and some of that rock is actually sunk down a little bit, and periodically I've noticed mole mounds kind of
I
in the
freaking hate
general
those moles.
area, and so I don't think they've had any effect on the hives to this point, but
don't
that's
think
something
so
we
either.
gotta probably deal with too, just to keep them from causing any potential issues. But they shouldn't be able to affect a pallet full of bees. It should be too heavy, and then they would get stung.
Those
as
some
well.
big moles out there.
But we'll find out.
So they're pretty low to the ground,
They are.
and there's 4 hives per pallet.
And we're actually going to be adding second boxes here. Today I'm going to go out to some that are at the farms, and I'm going to put on a second box and fill up feed and just make sure they're in good condition.
So you're checking on our hives. So interestingly enough, I was looking at the field and I was like, okay, we will easily get 1,000 hives in here.
Probably.
Took the measurements off of what you had already created and the rows that we'd already put in. And I was like, okay, there is tons of space here.
And they won't be there year round.
No, they're not.
No.
They're barely there at all. That's the interesting thing. So kind of just a interesting learning lesson, that I kind of learned was, when we brought the bees come from California, they're at, one of our partners' bee farms, a partner supplier that we work with. And then we're bringing the bees back to our farm, and then they're going right out to pollination. So it was kind of interesting because we took our bees from our partner's farm. We brought them to our farm. We unloaded them. We set them. And then the next day or 2 days later or whatever, they're going out to pollinate a big blueberry contract. What we probably should have done was either left them on the trailer or took them right from our partner's farm to the pollination contract.
That probably would have been the most ideal. It just wasn't practical at the time.
So do you think that's something that, looking back at, like, oh man, I wish we would have done that different? Or did you kind of know that in advance and just say, yeah, but this is how we've got to transition it?
I kind of made a call that week that's based on when and how and timing of things, and weather contributed to that too, of like what's our window to install here and do that stuff. And so that's just, is what it is. Our second round that we took to an apple orchard, we were able to install on site, which is where the other Dave got stung. Go back to the other podcast and listen to that story. That was kind of funny.
That's a great show.
Got under his veil and stung him. He took it off. And yeah, anyways.
Two fighters came in, hit him in the ear, the back of the head.
Bang.
Double tap.
They were heat-seeking missiles coming for him. So that one, we actually installed our nuke hives on site, put it right on in, and we're able to leave. And that was rather simple, easy. It's not as complicated as you think. You just take the frames out and drop them in. Pretty simple.
Number one lesson you learned doing our first big hive install, 40 hives we did at once. Big for us, maybe not big for you, but we installed 40 hives at once. Biggest lesson you learned, what was it?
Give yourself time. It's time consuming.
That's great. I would have never thought that time would have been the issue.
Because even if you can do each nuke in 5 minutes, it adds up. And then you got bees somewhat agitated flying around, and
if anybody
you
is
try
listening,
to do it in the best way where you're not mixing hives as much as possible.
If anybody is listening to the show, what is a nuke?
Nucleus hive, and so it's the queen comes. She'll be caged, or most likely caged within. There will be several frames of brood, a frame or so of honey, and so it's 5. You could maybe get a nuke that's a little bigger, but typically it's about 5 frames with the queen, several thousand bees, the brood, which is the typically it's going to be capped. Baby bees, they're going to emerge in the coming week or two, and your hive's going to begin to grow from there. And so it's the nucleus, it's the core elements of your hive, versus you could get a package, which typically your queen is not integrated with. They don't come with frames. You kind of just dump your bees into your supplies, into your box, and then you integrate your queen into that colony. So we had nukes that we installed this time around. So
I love it. So
time is a big factor. Weather also a big factor. You just have to plan.
Yeah.
There's a couple times that we planned to do some things in the last couple weeks, and because it was 50 degrees and rainy, it's like, okay, we got to do something different. We can't get into our hives right now.
You got to pivot.
Yep.
You at Honey4Hope,
flexible.
You wear a lot of hats.
For sure.
You do marketing. You do
get a little help with that, but
you do good. You do planting.
Yep.
You do bee management.
Yep.
You're crossing a lot of different verticals.
I'm a glorified truck driver as well. Learning how to wrap things up and get going.
Your wife likes? Do you roll your sleeves up?
No.
Off the cannons?
No. We're not there yet.
You're not there yet.
No.
All right. We're not gonna travel down that path too far. This is Teach Me Bees and other cool stuff. So let's see here. I got a good question for you. We talked about your number one lesson that you would learn. Our mission at Honey4Hope is about change the world, and I don't want to leave that behind. But we collected a $1,200 check for doing some bee work. And it's going to be great to see some of that profit go to change the world.
Yeah.
You know, about $120 out of that little check. And so, you know, like that's going to be a good thing. That's going to be a good thing for Honey4Hope. Our mission is change the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that means with the profit that we earn from, you know, doing our bee business, we're working to make the world a better place. I think that's what I love about Honey4Hope. That's what I love that we're able to do, because it's a mission, right? This business is, it's not just about bees, and I mean, it is about bees because we love bees and they're amazing, but it's also about
the bees have
giving
a purpose.
back. The bees have a purpose.
Yep.
They do.
And they have natural purpose, obviously pollination and such, but then for us, it's a wider purpose, right? Like they don't know this, but they're funding this venture to help change the world locally and globally.
Yeah, that's the exciting part. So it's interesting because, you know, when the bees were swarming, my wife is calling me. Right?
What's going on here?
And she's like, the bees are everywhere. What's going on? And then later, I get home from work and she's like, so are we going to have more bees?
Yes.
And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh. And she's like, she's asked me this like 20 times. She's like, are they going to be all over the place? Are they going to be like swarming at the front door? And I was
potentially,
like,
but
and I was
not.
like, no, I don't think so. I think they're just going to be everywhere. You know, they'll fly up. The bee will fly up to approximately 5 miles. And I'm training for a marathon. It's something I'm working on. So, you know, I'm really running like the neighborhoods and the streets, and I'm doing a lot of road work. And you know what I've really come to learn about the area where I live and where the bee farm is, man, that there is just so much open space, and there is so many blackberries and so many wildflowers, and just there's so much room for pollination that I was like, man, we are really doing a good thing here with the pollination. And we currently have 2 contracts going on. Mm-hmm. So we have a blueberry contract
and an apple
going on, and an apple contract going on, where we have 40 hives doing blueberries, correct?
Yep.
And 30 doing apples?
Right now, 20.
20 doing apples.
Yep.
Are we going to add more to that, or is that it?
Probably won't. They had a unfortunate thing with some of their trees. They lost about 2,000 trees. They had some kind of sickness come through, and like a beetle or something. I don't fully understand. I'm not an apple grower. Like, I don't pretend to be.
So we had more hives planned for there.
But that just means we have more hives for some other contracts, and so that's, you know, in the midst of delivering hives and installing hives and all that, you know, we're still trying to see if, you know, there's been some conversations with other farmers like, hey, we could bring out some hives to you. So we'll see what happens there. You know, we're in the midst of pollination season. So we're just working on pollinating and taking our hives to farms and to other locations. And then our attention will become on honey and honey harvest. And so we'll, you know, making sure we're ready to rock and roll.
I'm so excited for the honey harvest.
It's going to be super good. Super good.
It's going to be
stay tuned for that. It's going to be an exciting time, and when maybe we can get a podcast out there showing what's going on, and when that time comes for extracting, just kind of showing what that process is truly like.
We're going to do it,
or make a cool video instead, or
we're
whatever.
Gonna do it.
But
we're going to do it.
It's going to be super great.
All right, well, listen, we got to bring this thing in for a landing. It's been another fabulous show. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. I've got with me Scott the Beekeeper, Captain
Your
Pollination.
favorite co-host.
My favorite co-host. And we were having a great time. And if you like this show, give us a like, give us a share, or drop your comments in the comment box. Follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere at social. I'm hanging out. Thank you for joining in on our show. We're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you're a part of this journey. And remember, this is Teach Me Bees and other cool stuff. And don't forget, the mission, change the world. Join it, be a part of it, live it, love it.
Yeah, support the work. Have a great day, everybody.
Great day.